All right, in the interest of time, we are going to begin, and I'm sure during the webinar, many other participants will join as well. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to CSML speaker series, Find Inspiration to Empower Your Community. This is Dr. Leila Naderi. I'm the Director of Partnership Development at Alliant International University. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for our first webinar in 2021. I know we did this in 2020. Now this is, we are beginning and opening a new chapter of this speaker series in 2021. And we are so delighted because today we have invited an outstanding speaker and a wonderful leader who will share his insights with us. So if you have ever wanted to make a difference in your community, but you were not sure where to get started, I'm pretty confident that you will enjoy this webinar as our speaker, Mr. Tony Teravainen, President, CEO, and co-founder of the Support the Illicit Project, STEP, will share his insight how he was inspired to help struggling military families. So as you can see for the agenda today, we will begin by Dr. Rachna Kumar, Dean of California School of Management and Leadership, will have a brief introduction to Alliant International University and the California School of Management and Leadership. After that, she will introduce our speaker, Mr. Tony Teravainen, and our speaker will begin his presentation about finding the inspiration to empower your community. After his presentation, we are going to have some sort of interview and Q&A questions and answers. And at this time also, we would like to welcome each and every one of you. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to also share those in the comment section. We would be more than happy, in addition to the questions that we have from Tony, also share your questions as well. And then we will finalize the session with the final note and wrap up the session. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Rachna Kumar, Dean of California School of Management and Leadership. Dr. Kumar?
Thank you, Dr. Naderi. And I want to add my welcome to all the participants and especially our speaker for today, Mr. Tony Teravainen. So with that, let me start by giving you a little bit about introduction about Alliant and about the management school in Alliant. We are California School of Management and Leadership, and we are one of the 5 schools in Alliant International University. We have campuses all over California, 5 different campuses. And I myself am based in San Diego. A lot of the management school is based in San Diego. We have online programs as well as on-ground programs. Alliant has been a part of the San Diego community and in California, Northern California as well as Southern California, for more than 3-4 decades. And we are proud to be community members where we volunteer a lot of different tasks and a lot of different projects. The reason that is important to mention is because our speaker today, as you will see in just a minute when I start introducing him, brings with him a expertise for community service, expertise for bringing together the entrepreneurial spirit to make a difference and an impact in the community. So with that, let me tell you a little bit about our programs. We are in the management school, we have graduate programs, undergraduate programs, as well as doctoral programs. At the graduate level, we have a master's in business administration, MBA, an MS in information systems and technology, in data analytics, and in healthcare analytics. We have 2 doctoral programs, a doctor in business administration, which is called DBA, and a PhD in leadership. And we have several short-term certificate programs, which are graduate credit-bearing certificates, but you can complete them in 6 months or less than that. What I wanted to let you know was that California School of Management and Leadership, in its mission, actually has economic empowerment. So we align very well with what the speaker brings to us today and what we want to impart to you in terms of community service, in terms of how to bring together the power and the inspiration that you will hear from Mr. Tony Teravainen. With that, I will tell you a little bit about Tony. He is a Navy veteran, and he had used to work in the consulting industry in Booz Allen and Hamilton. He left that consulting job and became the CEO, full-time CEO for STEP. STEP, STEP, is basically support the enlisted project. And so you can see where his passion lies. He oversees the positioning of STEP as a successful and very trusted Bible partner of the Southern California military population. Under Tony's supervision, STEP has helped more than 5,000 military and veteran families. And he focuses on community empowerment especially from a financial focus. So he moves them, he gives them skills, and STEP up basically moves them from a situation of financial crisis to self-sufficiency through financial counseling. More than $2 million in grant has been utilized by STEP for these very, very important activities for support. And so with that, I will welcome you, Tony. Thank you for taking the time, and we are looking forward to hear more from you.
Thank you. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Let's see if I can get this screen share working. That work?
Yes.
Perfect.
All right, fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Nadiri and Dr. Kumar for this opportunity, and the rest of the team and staff at Alliant International University and the California School of Management and Leadership for inviting me here today to share my message. I'm not one for excuses, as you will hear, but I did want to share that between accepting this speaking opportunity and this delivery, half of my family contracted COVID-19. So thankfully, nobody went to the hospital, but obviously we had a lot of time constraints and COVID fog in my tender throat. I will say now that I have not practiced or memorized this speech a great deal, and I'm really just going to read it so I can make sure that I stay as articulate as possible and don't ramble. So I'm inspired by our mission at Alliant, and the mission I've heard from Dr. Nadiri really aligns with what we do at STEP. As you may know or will hear, I work at a nonprofit which receives its revenue from private sources. We don't receive federal or state grants. So every donation we receive, from $1 to $240,000, which was our largest gift, I send a letter to each donor as a receipt and a thank you. And each one I sign, plus I write a customized note on each of it, and it always contains their name and then something empowering. So one example would be, thank you, Linda and Douglas, for choosing to make a difference with STEP. Every one of my donors makes a choice to do something to create positive change in their community. And this is very close to that mission that I heard from Dr. Nadiri, to connect, educate, and empower the community for positive change in the world. Also, I have many partners, other agencies and people whom I work with to have strategic relationships with, so we can move our collective efforts forward. When I handwrite the thank you cards to those folks, I will usually put something like, thank you for choosing to make a difference with us. Together, we can make this community into the one we want our children to grow up in. And really that reflects the that mission of, yes, we need to improve our communities for today, but we also need to influence the culture of our community for our children, so it's a better place. And if we don't do it, who do we trust to do this? So again, I'm inspired by your mission, and it's a true honor to be here today. So my name is, get my slides mixed up here. There we go. Did I go back?
I think you need to just click on it one more time.
Did that change?
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, let me know if it goes away here. Did it go away? No? Okay. So I'm Tony Teravainen. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Support the Enlisted Project, better known as STEP. We are an 8-year-old 501c3 nonprofit that works with young military and veteran families when they're in a financial crisis. And our focus is to move them from that crisis to a lifetime of financial self-sufficiency. We serve the families that live in the 8 counties here in Southern California, which is about 13% of the military, the total military. And we actually have just expanded to cover the state of Washington, which will add another 7% of the military, taking us to 1/5 of the military that we'll be serving. Find the inspiration to empower your community is the title of this talk. And in it, I wanted to share some of the context that inspired me to found STEP and to lead it. And then also wanted to share an update as to the magnitude of the goodness and positivity that we're creating in the community. And then I wanted to close by sharing some of my life's experiences that helped shape me, highlighting what I consider to be the 4 characteristics that I have embodied that have been irreplaceable in the building of my inspirational life. This is to Dr. Naderi's request to share my personal leadership journey. If nothing else, you're going to take a ride on my personal leadership journey with this one. 2 years ago, I was invited to speak at a TEDx event in Orange County, TEDx Turtle Rock. And the conference theme was Ideas Unchained. And they wanted me to focus on the behavior-based change that we built at Support the Enlisted Project. Our program gets 9 out of 10 clients past their crisis and onto a permanent path of financial self-sufficiency. They wanted me to share this. I was really stumped writing this speech on how to get an audience in Orange County to connect with the plight of the young military families, the young veterans that we help. And I decided to take a step back and look at this problem more holistically. And I started to research looking at our country's financial spendings and behaviors. And I was astounded. I learned that it's not just our military families that struggle in this area. So why is that? Okay, get better at this. Because changing behaviors can be tough, and especially our personal financial behaviors. Most Americans will tell you that they wish they spend less and save more. So why don't they? Did you know that 3 out of 5 American adults spend their entire paycheck or more each month? Half of all Americans cannot come up with $400 to cover an unplanned emergency. Unprepared for these inevitable crises, families can get crushed under the stress and circumstances that ultimately lead to the loss of a family's basic necessity. We're talking about housing, transportation, electricity, water, food, diapers, the list goes on. And when this happens, the families and children can suffer irreparably at a staggering cost to our communities. So what's it going to take for Americans to change their spending and saving behaviors? From what I've seen in my time here at STEP, it can be done with a combination of specific knowledge, skills, and behaviors in personal finance, and then specialized counseling to guide those folks through the process. I see that many people know what they need to do, but they just can't figure out how to get their arms around their specific financial situation. They can't figure out how to get over this unknown chasm just to get to the starting point to build this solid financial plan. And I believe we can change our financial behaviors and that we don't need to live paycheck by paycheck. Now, obviously, my passion is not necessarily for personal finance, it's for military families. I understand the struggles that these military families face because I've lived them. I was raised in a junior military family. I'm a Navy veteran, and I've spent the last 10 years now working to support our young military families. And from those experiences, I've learned a few things. I learned that every year, 200,000 women and men join the military. They are 18 to 24 years old, and they represent a fairly even cross-section of America, coming from all states, classes, and demographics. I also learned that military families face additional challenges, stemming from moving their homes every 3 years, being deployed more than a third of the time. Half of them earn a low income wage, and they get locked into that wage as spousal unemployment and underemployment is around 50%. On top of that, the military is the third most deadly occupation in the United States. And over the last 30 years, more service members have died from work-related accidents than any other cause. So think about the added stress this puts on these families. Now, as I was learning all this, that our military is made up of average Americans with average financial behaviors, that we place them in situations that strain their finances, and their jobs require a full focus and distraction, no distractions, I began to feel that we're setting these families up for failure. And I became increasingly driven to act as I figured out that at a minimum, 12,000 military families experience the loss of a basic necessity due to a financial crisis each year. That is 231 each week. And it just doesn't need to be that way. So in my youth, I walked in their boots. And in my adulthood, I learned to solve problems. So it was time to put these two together. I worked to create a nonprofit agency to address the problems of young military families regularly experiencing financial crisis, a program that is now 90% effective in permanently changing their financial behaviors. Now, to achieve this success, I needed to look at the problem differently. This is not merely an education problem. Military folks have access to plenty of education, financial education. This is not an intellectual capacity issue. They taught me to run a nuclear reactor when I was in the Navy, but I still had money problems. This is like smoking or not exercising or any other chronic self-destructive behavior we have. So we looked at the problem that way, as a behavior change issue. And then I combined two different approaches, a social work approach, utilizing a short-term intervention, focusing on the behavior side, and then a business approach, utilizing a change management process, a process that has worked in industry to help businesses change their culture and their behaviors. Knowing we could not lower the cost of living or raise military incomes, we focused on providing personalized counseling to empower these families to manage their finances so they can thrive. And then we back that up with a bridge grant if we need to. So we truly teach these families to fish, and if they need it, we will also give them one. Now, there's definitely not enough time here to get into the granular discussion, but I want to hit the high points of this program, the framework of this program. I want to focus on these elements because it really lies at the heart of our success. And we created this process, we brought it to market, and like any other product or process, an entrepreneur will bring. So again, this goes back to the power of thinking that leadership needs to bring to every type of situation. So with the social work approach, the program uses 5 different social work modes in its strategic framework. All of these are combined into our theory of change. So most importantly, we rely on a solution-focused approach, and then we add in crisis theory pieces. We add in the components from a strengths perspective. We add in a family preservation model, and then we put that all in this another additional model, which is called a client-driven goal-setting environment. The financial counselors that we use are professional social workers. And they're actually all either military spouses and or veterans themselves. So they understand the military world, but they're trained social workers, they're professional social workers. I send them to financial counseling class so that they're also financial counselors. And then I give them the time necessary to perform the one-on-one counseling required for each family in crisis. The time it takes to help that family get their arms around their issues and take control of their situation and to set their goals and set their strategies. The second side of this is the business approach. So we're going to use a change management process. So the program follows a basic change process, and there's a lot of different change processes out there. This graphic is from John Kotter, or the components, these 8 steps from John Kotter's book, Leading Change, which is a pretty standard one. And like I said, it breaks it down into 8 steps. And these 8 steps, first you have a burning platform or a sense of urgency. And that is this family's crisis. They call me when the tow truck's following them home for this car repossession. They're calling me the day before their eviction comes to pass. They call me when their electricity is going to be turned off in 2 hours. These families have gotten to the point where they want to change and they're reaching out for help. And they might call up and say, I don't have enough food to feed my kids tonight. But what we hear in that moment is, I can't do this on my own. Can you help me? I want this to change forever. And that's the tiniest thread that they're letting dangle out of this armor plating that they have. And our social workers practice their craft. They grab that little thread and they start to pull it. And they say, oh, your car's going to get repossessed. Yeah, can you help me? I can help you. What do you want your financial future to look like? I need to keep my car. Oh, why is that important to you? And then the conversation starts to go from there. These families walk through with our team, the guiding coalition, creating a vision and strategy, communicating it, taking action, short-term wins, long-term wins, institutionalizing change. They walk through that change process with their social worker using those 5 social work modalities. This is the key to success for our emergency financial assistance program. This is why it works. So that's the program. So what does it look like today? Today, as you've heard, we have helped. We've got a lot of numbers on this graph here. We've actually had over 9,000 applications, and we've helped about 7,000 families with grants through this process. We came up over 500 evictions, in-process evictions that we've stopped this year. Almost 500 auto repossessions stopped or reversed. This food number is a little deceptive. That's much higher this year with COVID, and I'll touch on that for a minute. So we have very large impacts. 97% of the families that come to me come from personal referral from another agency, from their military supervisor, from their friend, their coworkers, their neighbor. So we've worked really hard to build this reputation that we are the trusted resource for extreme crisis situation. If you're going to lose your house, you need to go to STEP because they're the ones that can make it work. And that number at the top left that says 100% successful at halting the loss of a basic necessity for the families that come to us that fit in our square. We haven't missed one yet, knock on wood. A year post-intervention, 86%. A year after their intervention is over, 86% have continued to increase their financial well-being. 92% of the families a year post-intervention are still, or up to 3 years, are still on track with achieving the goals that they set. And most importantly for my donors, almost 85% of every dollar donated goes directly to programs. So these are huge accomplishments. At the bottom of this graphic, you see that we are a 4-star charity navigator rating. That's one of the top watchdog agencies. The other is GuideStar, and we also have their highest rating. And then recently, actually 3 years ago now, we emerged in the top 30 through a national ranking system for all nonprofits nationally that support military veterans and their families, which there's around 40,000 of them, and we're number 29, which is fantastic. We're fantastically proud of that number. As far as COVID, what does it look like this year? We had to shift a little bit, and as a manager, as a leader, as somebody who is trying to affect change in the community, it's important that we take that responsibility to adapt to these new environments. COVID changed the environment. We have to change to meet them. If we don't change to meet the times, we're going to disappear, and we're not going to be able to share our goodness anymore. So we had to shift when the eviction and foreclosure moratorium went into place. Nobody's worried about losing their house. On average, we were stopping 8-9 evictions a month, but nobody's getting evicted anymore. So that wasn't a crisis anymore. And really what happened was, even though 70% of the cases we work are in Maslow's lowest level priorities of survival of, food, shelter, and security, it actually knocked down even further in there. And these folks were worried about just staying alive, their basic health, and feeding their kids and not making themselves susceptible from dying from this disease. And if you remember back in March and April, it was very scary. We had to change a lot of the things we did. One of the things we did was start to get into more food distributions. We weren't able to do any outreach on base, obviously, and continue to connect with the military families. But what we found was we could do it through these, we could meet this need they had to do a touchless food distribution. And we could continue to have our social workers out there talking to them, touching base, bring other community partners in, letting these families know as they come through that there's a world out here that's still trying to support them. This started the day after kind of COVID shut the world down in mid-March. We had a chaplain off one of the ships call us up, and he said, I've got, of the sailors I have 9 here that can't leave the ship. And at home, they have no baby food and no diapers. Can you help? And this really goes back to that level of trust that we created with the military leadership. And we took the call, and everybody kind of stood there and looked at each other like, how do we do this? And it's like, all right, people, it's game time. Let's think outside the box. And within 5 minutes, we said, all right, well, whatever forms we need, let's email them to the chaplain. He can get the people to fill the stuff out. He can email the stuff back to us. We can stack it up on a pallet. He can drive by and pick it up and deliver it. And then it just kept going from there. Since then, we've done around 35 food distributions, handing out food to over 12,000 families. We've handed out 137,000 diapers and about the same amount of food, about 135,000 pounds of food that we've delivered to families. This process keeps us in touch with them. This process gives our social workers a few minutes to interact with them as they're checking them in. This process gives our community a chance to come out here and volunteer and share time, share the love, and really work to empower these families as they come through these touchless drive-thrus. So that's kind of where we're at today. And that was the building of STEP. You know, I said I took over starting to work it. And in doing that, this is where this part of this inspirational life. And I've told that starting STEP was very much of an inspirational act. I'm not sure I agree with it. Many people have told me that my life is inspiring. And they'll ask me, you know, how did you become inspiring? How did you plan all this, Tony? What's your secret? I wish I could plan out a life like this. And I sit back and I wonder and I think about it. It's like, at what point did my life become inspiring? How did I overcome all these problems that I had? How did I start a nonprofit that's helped, you know, well over 5,000 young military families out of a financial crisis, but also positively impact 200,000 more? So honestly, I don't know how it happened. I didn't plan it. I couldn't have predicted it, but I'm honestly humbled that people think so. I've come from a family of very limited means. We always believed in hard work, responsibility, and making it on your own. And I stayed close to those roots, learning from every experience along the way. My parents did their best to take care of us. Kids, we were 3 kids. And I know the times were challenging for them. My dad left home at 17, left his Brooklyn home at 17, and then soon enlisted in the Air Force after he drew a low draft number. So he elected to join the Air Force instead of get drafted into the Army. He met my mom in Wichita, Kansas, where she had grown up in the foster care system and had just aged out. I was raised in this junior military family. So I really understand when I see these military families that are hurting and the hardships they're going through. I understand it because that's what we lived as children. My dad always worked 2 jobs. My mom would work at night as a cocktail waitress or a donut maker. I was talking to my dad last week, and he was talking about the various trailer parks we lived in, the tiny apartments, and even a converted chicken coop once in Minnesota or Michigan. When we needed to fix something or build something, we went to the dump to scrounge for the parts. And this was the childhood, this was the life that we took across the United States as we moved from base to base, and that includes 2 bases in Europe. But this really gave me the opportunity to see the country, to see the world, and it also gave me the opportunity to change schools 6 times. So being in a military family, you focus on survival. You're always working to just get by, always in work of create some source of normalcy. As you get ready to break down your house, you move your house, you set up your house, you create a life, and then you start breaking it down again and get ready to go. One thing that it does not teach you is how to plan for the future. And if it did, I missed that class. But that was where my friends at my second high school came into place. And these were people that we considered by most to not have any chance at success in life. But I know they had dreams because they shared them with me, and they helped me create my dreams. They showed me how to get into college. I got in and I went off to get my electrical engineering degree. But once on the campus of Old Dominion University, I started having challenges. I just felt like I didn't fit in. In hindsight now, in all my work with the military and veterans, I realized this was really my first transition out of the military. As a kid, we did everything on base, on the military. All of our friends were military. Our school was on base. We shopped on base. You kind of just never left. It was always part of you. And now I was out of the military and I kind of felt lost. And these were some of the traits and characteristics that many of our veterans feels today. I almost made it one semester before I realized the end was near. I had a quick chat with my dad, and he gave me the number of a friend of his who was a Navy recruiter. And we talked. I took some tests, and then I summarized at the end of our conversation. I said, so you're telling me that you'll teach me how to run a nuclear reactor. I can be on submarines. You give me a place to sleep before Christmas when I get booted out of the dorms, and you'll pay me for this. And the guy said, yes. I said, sign me up. And true to his word, Christmas Eve, I was on a train to boot camp, starting my military life. There it is, right there.
Very nice.
The military is great for me. I adopted into the culture very easily. The submarine world was about people that could perform and get it done. And this appealed to me. I loved it. It was hard work. It was long days. It was lots of sea time. It was mountains of responsibility and stress. And I excelled at most everything. I truly felt at home in this environment. But after 8.5 years, this all came to a screeching halt. I ended up failing my health physical as I was ready to go back to another submarine for my third tour of duty. I not only failed it, I did it so bad that they disqualified me from working on submarines, from going to sea and working on reactors. They actually retired me. So at 26 years old, I was really at ground zero. I remember sitting on the front porch of my house, had this mountain of paperwork in my hand, and I'm on the phone, and the guy said, hey, your paperwork came in. You don't need to come in tomorrow. I said, great, where do you want me to go? He says, I don't care where you go, just don't come here. And that was it. So starting again, I analyzed my situation, and I determined that I needed to find a job. At one of these seminars I went to, I bumped into a recruiter, and he tried to hire a friend of mine that did the same thing I did in the Navy. So I went up to him and I said, I did what he did. And the recruiter looked at me kind of puzzled for a second. And he said, so you can fix robots? I blinked twice. I realized I knew nothing about robots. And I looked him in the eye and said, yes, I can. I got the job and I worked there for 12 years. It was a Sony manufacturing plant here in San Diego. I started as a back shift maintenance worker, and I applied for every promotion I could get. And again, here I excelled at most every position, every opportunity. I also completed 3 university degrees and several different certifications, such as Six Sigma. And then after 12 years, the factory finally closed. I was laid off like the other 2,500 people that we had for employees. From there, I went to, for the next 4 years, I worked on a series of small businesses that I had created on the side. And this was great. This gave me a lot of time to practice executive experience in a number of different fields. And this was really good for me kind of bringing together these different leadership skills and trying to practice them differently. But this too was all about to come to a screeching halt. And this really happened at this major shifting in my life, and one that took me from this preparation to execution, to really starting to take charge of situations. This is where my experience and my knowledge were going to be put into action. And that shift started October 24th, 2007, where a wildfire totally destroyed my house. And within a year of that fire, under a mountain of stress and emotions, my marriage ended. And I got to add part-time single dad to my resume. At the same time, the Great Recession was pounding my small business hard. Sales were down 40%. My new alimony and child support, my financial pressures were overwhelming. But determined to make payroll and keep my business afloat, I took a second job consulting with Booz Allen Hamilton, and then I could run my business at night. I didn't know it at the time, but that consulting job really was going to be the gateway into my next chapter. Determined to continue moving forward after the fire, I'd got a trailer, and I put it next to my burnt house, and I called that home for 6 years. And to this day, I'm 52 years old, 51 years old, and to this day, that's the longest I've ever lived in one house, over 6 years. On one visit from my dad, he had asked me with everything going on how I wasn't having a nervous breakdown. And I quickly told him I was just taking it one day at a time. But that night, lying in the upper bunk above my sleeping 4-year-old daughter in my princess sheets, I wondered, how was I coping? And I realized I was treating this like every other problem in my life. And this solution followed a familiar pattern. Work hard, seize opportunities, learn everything you can, and do not give up. This is how I've solved all the problems in my life. Like the challenges in my childhood, as a military kid, we moved 8 times. But because I handle my problems this way, I learned to appreciate the many people and cultures in our world. Like the unexpected end to my Navy career, where doctors told me that I was most likely terminally ill. But I was eventually able to use that news to better understand the preciousness of life and time. Like that job at Sony, being jeopardized through 6 years of layoffs. But I used that pressure to earn 3 undergraduate degrees and advance to become the chief maintenance engineer for the plant. Like the unexpected end to my marriage, but I was able to deepen my sense of empathy from it and become a better father. Like losing almost everything in a wildfire, but I got to be that person needing a hand up. This gave me an opportunity to see and feel the inner workings and have needs for our social welfare networks. So in solving my problems this way, I have emerged a better person. Now that consulting job I took, I learned quick that consultants at these high power agencies were smart and they had fancy graduate degrees. I was wondering why they came to me for advice. It was time for me to get my master's degree, to formalize my professional hands-on learning, and to harness my natural servant leadership skills. As many of you have experienced or are experiencing now, my coursework really pushed me to dig into my experiences, my thoughts, and my behaviors. I truly had to learn who I was before I could learn to truly inspire others. It was one of the big pieces giving me the confidence and skills to be that inspirational leader in the most professional settings. And as a new consultant, I needed to work harder. So I seized a volunteer opportunity. I was going to build a strategic plan for a nonprofit that worked for military families. I didn't know anything about nonprofits, but I must have done good because soon I was voted onto their board of directors. I learned everything I could on that board, and after a few years, the nonprofit's national leadership made some changes, which significantly reduced our ability to serve local military families. And this was really unpleasing to me because I honestly understood the need and value for these services. So we broke away from the national group. We resigned our charter and went out on our own, forming a new nonprofit called Support the Enlisted Project to fill that gap in services. I wrote the startup strategy, and then they made me chairman of the board. Soon we needed to hire a CEO to grow the agency to sustainability. And I did a long search, and I searched and searched. And finally, one night I realized that my searching had taught me something. It taught me that the job was too big and too risky, and that nobody was going to take it. And the next morning, I walked out onto my trailer's porch, I looked at my new house finally being built. I thought about my new wife and our plans to start a family. And even with all of these financial hurdles, I told my wife to get this nonprofit off the ground. I needed to become its CEO and quit my full-time and quit my consulting job. And now, 8 years later, the nonprofit's stable and expanding. My house is finished, and we have 2 additional children. So what's my secret to being an inspirational leader? The secret is there is no secret. But there are 4 characteristics that I feel. There are 4 characteristics that I've embodied, characteristics that I feel, when combined with all the help I've received from those around me and my faith in God, have been irreplaceable in the building of my inspirational life. I've always worked hard. I've known that to get ahead, you need to work hard. Nobody owes you anything, so if you want something, you need to go make it happen. I've always seized opportunities. I put myself outside my comfort zone, challenge myself, grow my abilities to perform in different environments. With time, these different experiences will start to bring you the wisdom you need for your next opportunities. I've always learned everything I could. Every situation is a learning moment. Knowledge is truly power. And there are so many places to learn besides school. For one, your family and your employees have so much to teach you through feedback. And lastly, I do not give up. Where there's a will, there needs to be a way. I will generate whatever grit, tenacity, or fortitude I need to keep moving forward. And I believe you all can build an inspiring life too. If you work hard, seize your opportunities, you learn everything you can, and you do not give up. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Tony. I was just listening, not when you began with the story about the step, you started with you began with the end. People can see your success now, but when it came to your life story, and also you shared the challenges that you have gone through, it made it much more meaningful to me, and I'm sure for the audience as well, that like why you are doing what you are doing now. Dr. Kumar, do you have any comments? What are your thoughts?
It was an interesting but also fascinating. It was interesting and fascinating to listen to you. And as you were describing the different facets of your life, the different steps and journey, there were so many questions that I had. So let me start with one. You went to Booz Allen, and then you worked in several corporate kind of company situations, and then now you're in STEP. Speak a little bit to us about the difference in the level of achievement, the sense of achievement that you get when you were at Booz, because every job you described, you said you did very well, you did the best you could, you shined over there, and obviously you're doing very well in STEP. People are looking towards you for inspiration. Compare the sense of achievement of the jobs previously and now what you do now.
I think it's all incremental. I mean, I think it's important that you feel achievement at everything you do, and I've always tried to do that. I will share that growing up the way I grew up, I've always felt behind. And so I always felt kind of not worthy to be there. And so I always had to work that little bit harder to prove. And I think that's part of what it does for me. And I might not recognize achievement as much as the next person, because I'm in a survival mode, not a shine mode, if you will. But I think at everything along the way, building up my personal businesses or my work at Sony, my work in the military, each one of those has built on itself and given me something, where I've been able to take something from that, maybe. And as I work to sit here at Startup Step, I could almost draw a direct line back to where I learned each of these components, skills, soft skills, hard skills, whatever I needed from each of these different places. So I think it's important to have a level of sense of achievement everywhere you go. And it's definitely incremental, kind of like I started out saying. And even if you're, you're starting, you're early in your career and you're not in a position of a lot of responsibility, it's very important to also feel a sense of achievement there, because what you achieve and what you understand and you can be proud of, that's yours forever. And then you can just take that with you to the next place.
Very, very well said. Thank you for that response. I always tell that this is a journey, not a destination. So, of course, enjoy the journey, but also, like you said, have a sense of achievement in every step. And incremental is the right word that you used. Incrementally, you learn, you build, and you continue your journey and become better at it continuously.
Kumar, you touched on a really good point also, and I think when I was listening at the Tony, his passion for learning is something also. I think it's an added advantage for any great leaders. It's just like how, if you want to be a successful leader, how you need to be in a continuous learning. And you mentioned the power of education. Although you were struggling, between jobs, life, but you never gave up on learning, whether it was a formal education or just like you mentioned different type of learning that you have had through the certificate. So I want you to mention why it's important, Tony, why it's important be consistently being curious and never stop learning, because your story, whether life story as well as also your career story, shows that like things will change as you were in ups and downs, but also it's just like how you stayed flexible and also never always finding something, learning something through the situation, help you to overcome that dark moment, but getting to the next phase of your life and beginning a new chapter. So can you elaborate on that?
Sure.
How do you keep yourself this much curious, and why it's important?
It's important. Education definitely is not the end all be all. And I think it's important to have a very good balance between hands-on capabilities and academic learning. So these are two sides of the same coin. And we see this a lot today in our political environment, where we have a lot of experts that have an opinion. And there's a lot of people that say experts might know what experts know, but they don't know what it's really like in the world. So being able to put yourself in the middle of that, have the knowledge and understanding capabilities that these experts have, but also know what it's like in the real world, and be able to, because my job is I can't complain, I can't point, I have to create solutions. And I have this chessboard, this is all I have. So I have to be able to think through and create solutions, with these tools I have. And the ones that are going to work are the ones that take the best balance from both of those worlds, and you can bring them together. When I was at Sony, I started a back shift maintenance worker at, $12.10 an hour. And I worked 5:48 at night to 5:48 in the morning. And that's hard living. And I realized I needed something different. And they said, hey, if you want to be a supervisor, you need a college degree. And so I started going to school. And, with that schedule, and, we would work 5 or 6 nights a week. But I still managed to get to school. And in the 3 or 4 years it took me to get that degree, I had advanced all the way up through the maintenance ranks and was at that top level. As soon as I got my degree, 2 weeks later, I applied for a management position and I got it. I skipped the supervisory level, and then things started changing. And it was interesting, my boss, then he took me and put me in charge of, in charge of the maintenance group. So then I went back and I got an associate's in nuclear engineering. So I had some type of technical background. And then as soon as I got that degree, he made me an engineering manager. Now I have engineers working for me. So I went back to school and I finished my bachelor's in nuclear engineering. So it was a half catch up, half get me to the next step. But if I didn't do any of those things, I wouldn't have moved forward. The graduate degree while I was at Booz Allen Hamilton, it was something needed for the profession. And it really helped me pull together a lot of my different types of learning. So yeah, it's incredibly important to get that academic learning, but to be able to also live. I'm back in school now. I'm doing a PhD program in public policy. What I've learned here at STEP is, I started at the bottom. Sure, I'm the CEO, but we're a nobody company and I don't know anything about it. So as I learn and grow, as I start to do more things in the community, as I start to, become commissioners and sit on other panels and boards, I start to see this bigger picture of this community service world. And then I start to ask myself, how did we get here? How did these policies happen? So before I can take anything in another direction, I want to understand more about it. So I've got less than a year left in my coursework. And then, so probably 2 years left in the program, hopefully. But yeah, with that degree, I'll be able to, move on to kind of the next level of thinking and the next level of affecting positive change in our communities.
Wonderful. Leila, you have a question in the chat.
That's wonderful. So I see Vicky is asking a question. Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned that military has many service providers. Do you think that your success is your direct experience, that you know the struggles and you also know how to get to success?
I think the short answer would be yes. I see a lot of people out there that are really well-intentioned, and they might know that they might be super passionate about doing something for, let's say, just military. I mean, there's 4,000 military sport nonprofits here in San Diego, and there's 82% of them are under $50,000 a year in budget. I'm at about 2.5 million now. So we've grown it. And along the way, I've met a lot of these folks, highly passionate folks, but they don't have a business sense. They don't have a business degree. My first degree was business management. They don't have a business degree. They haven't worked in other business. They haven't started businesses. They haven't tried to create strategies. They're not used to being in that environment. So my entrepreneurial work, my life in the military to help me understand it, those are all definitely key. And then it helps me set the culture in the agency because I can't be everywhere at once. And one of the strongest things I tell I meet with every new employee and every new volunteer, well, up until this year with volunteers, but I tell them they know my mom, and my mom is now a retired college professor. And so she's definitely come a long way herself. And they know her, and she helps us. She still volunteers with, kind of high-end writing and stuff like that. She was an English professor. They know her. And it's like, that's Dr. Gordon. That's Tony's mom. That's the boss's mom. I mean, this is like, and, she was a military spouse. And I'm like, yeah, she was. And every client that comes in this door, every mom that comes in here, and I don't care what their circus looks like, how many kids are screaming, what's going on, you're going to treat them like they're my mother. Because this is where she came when she was 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, dragging 2 kids around while her old man's over in Okinawa. This is where she came for help. And you're going to treat every mom when they come in this door just like you treat her. And those kids that are rolling around on the ground, breaking the arm off Batman, smashing the tank, that's me and my sister laying there. And you're going to treat them just like you would treat me. And that really goes a long way in helping everybody in here continually remember what this is about and why we're doing this work.
Yeah. What comes through is the passion and the passion for service. It's not just about business. One time I'd done a study on this head versus heart. To do the right thing, whether it's community empowerment, financial literacy, self-sufficiency, economic empowerment, you have to have the passion and the heart. You have to understand that. But like you said, you have to learn about the business aspects as well, because otherwise you will be at the small level and not be able to do more of what you want to do. So I can see that you have that grit of multiplying the passion with every, I'd like to call them clients, but everyone who you want to provide your service to.
Outstanding. And I see a comment also from Dr. Nayard, actually, and he says, congratulations from one former Navy guys, a past with consular to a great visionary and successful leader. Bravo, Zulu Tony. So this is also coming from one of our faculty member, actually. Yes, congratulations, Tony. Tony, I don't know, almost we have a couple more minutes, and I want to make sure we finalize this session. For the last questions and comments, we want to just like, my personal mantra is that the true nobility is not about being the best, it's about being better than what you used to be. And when I was listening to your story, it's just like, to me also was like, you consistently becoming better than what you were 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. And with that being said, for the final question I wanted to ask, what do you hope to become? Because you are doing a fantastic job in STEP, but I'm sure it's not the final destination, it's the journey you're taking. So we want to have your commitment or maybe your vision to hear from, what do you hope to become?
It is a journey. If there's anything, we've learned from this, it's a journey. Yeah, I know STEP is not my swan song. There's definitely gonna be life after STEP. And I think I've never really went out and looked. It's like, I'm gonna do this, and I went and did that. It's kind of going with the flow and being flexible enough, but knowing the area I want to go. So, one of the things that I'm always thankful for in my prayers is all these blessings of knowledge, my abilities. I don't think I'm special, but most people that are around me and work with me think I'm special in certain ways, and that I'm very capable in these ways. And some of this is the things that I've practiced here in this last year with STEP, just being very flexible at managing this agency to be nimble and react. Combining everything I've learned to this point, with this public policy degree, it's my hope that I can take my skills and talents to the next level. And I'm not sure where that is. I'm not a candidate for running for office because I don't think that's the best place that change can be made. But I think there's definitely other tables that I can go sit at that are probably definitely 10 years ago unreachable for me. But as I continue that journey, like we talk about, getting to those tables to be able to affect change at a higher level and improve the lives of magnitudes of more people.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Any final comments? I want to hear from you and Dr. Kumar if you have any final comments to share.
No, like I said, I'm just truly honored to be here with you today and to share the story. I posted this out on my social media, like you asked me to, and I said this is going to be one of the most revealing or intimate talks that I give, and definitely this is the first time I gave a lot of those components. But yeah, I think the key about journey, incremental growth, and maybe one thing that I haven't spent enough time with was the people along the way that helped me. There's a lot of people as I look back that were in my life that helped me achieve the next level in something, and I didn't recognize it at the moment. And by not recognizing, I didn't, one, acknowledge it, and two, I didn't maximize it. So I think bringing people around you, or realizing that there are people around you, and then maybe working to connect with them and yes, acknowledge with them, but also when it's always a one-way conversation, you're getting 50% of it. But if you start asking questions and ask for more help, you might get even more from that person. So work to maximize those relationships. There's so many, there's so many things that good leaders do. I mean, everybody's got a list of top 10 things and 20 things. And I picked these 4 elements here that I think cover a lot of it. And I think everybody along their journey has to figure out what's working for them. shore up the weak areas, either with school or with good employees and good help, and then continue to move forward. That would be, my message, and that's probably the core message of my personal leadership journey, which is what you asked for.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Kumar, any comment before I share also the final note?
Well, Tony's, Mr. Teravainen's comments are the most appropriate ones to close with. I will just say thank you very much for sharing them and sharing your time with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tony. We are so grateful and also blessed to have you today to share your insights with our community. We talked together separately, but also like when you shared, your personal life story attached to how you have come to where you are now, it made it even more meaningful to me, and I'm sure many our attendees also they benefit. So with that being said, I want to say thank you to you. Thanks to Dr. Kumar always coming and joining our sessions, and also thank you everyone who joined today, and for those of you who asked questions, comments, and also just created this space for us. We truly appreciate, and we hope that you continue to join us. As you know, a CSML speaker series will continue in 2021. So please mark your calendar. First Wednesday of every month at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, we are going to bring amazing speakers such as Tony that we had today, so that they will share their stories, and also you will learn how you can become not only successful in the business you do, but also empowering your community, and also like as a person feeling more being more finding that meaning and purpose in your life. And for final note, I just want to say, Tony, the three things you highlighted quite a bit: work hard, seize the opportunity, never give up. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. That was great.